Life of Pi, summaries of chapters 62 to 78. Chapter 62. Pi is not able to sleep. Just before dawn, he looks over at Richard Parker, who is moaning and growling. Pi knows there is a little water left in the bottom of the boat, but Richard Parker will be thirsty soon. Pi is surprised and pleased to find lots of water in his solar stills. Pi calls the stills his sea cows, and their water milk. He drinks a whole liter of water. He realizes that he will be able to survive with the rations, fish, and water from the solar stills. Pi goes over to the lifeboat and gives Richard Parker a flying fish and a bucket of water. Again, Pi blows his whistle to let the tiger know that it is Pi who has been the provider. Pi realizes that he has created a zoo as well as a circus. Pi is the keeper who goes home to his raft, and the boat is Richard Parker's enclosure with sleeping, eating, and drinking areas. Pi catches no fish the whole day. He sees a turtle but lets it live. Pi realizes that the next day will be 1 week since the Simsum sank. Chapter 63. Pi talks about real-life people who survived for weeks at sea: the Robertson family, the Bailey family, Captain Bligh, Stephen Callahan, Owen Chase, and a sailor named, Pi thinks, Poon. Pi then says that he himself survived for 227 days, more than 7 months. Note: do an internet search on any of these people to find fascinating stories and movies. Pi's daily routine for survival: keeping busy. Morning: pray, feed Richard Parker, inspect boat, raft, and ropes, maintain solar stills, eat breakfast, fish, and prepare codfish. Afternoon: pray, eat lunch, rest and light work, write in diary, etc. Evening: pray, fish and prepare fish, dinner for self and tiger, inspect boat, raft, and ropes, collect water from stills, put away supplies, get flare, prepare for bed, pray. Night: sleep on and off, and pray. Pi says his days did not always go as expected. When it rained, he worked hard to collect water. He was visited by turtles. He spent a lot of time watching Richard Parker. After 5 or 6 weeks, Pi almost completely stopped looking for rescue ships. Pi says he survived because he made a point of forgetting how many days were passing. The Simsum sank on July 2nd, 1977, and Pi's story of life at sea ended on February 14th, 1978. Pi says, in between, there was no calendar. Chapter 64. Pi's clothes fall apart, and he lives for months wearing nothing but a whistle. He has sores, especially on his backside where he gets wet. The sores are very painful. Pi tries to learn how to navigate by studying the survival manual, but he doesn't know anything about constellations or plotting courses. He had always seen the night sky as a way toward faith, not as a way to locate himself geographically. He gives up because he has no way to control the boat. His destination is controlled by the wind and the currents and time. He learns later that his journey was controlled by the Pacific Equatorial Counter Current. Question: do faith and knowledge give humans control of their lives? How much control do people have over their future happiness or success? Chapter 66. Pi fished with different kinds of hooks and weights, but he worked long hours and sometimes caught only small fish. The result was that Richard Parker was always hungry. Then Pi learned how to fish with a gaff. He would put a small fish on the hook, wait for a bigger fish to get in the right spot, and then impale it. Pi learns that if he gaffs fish in their tails, they can get away. The best place to aim for, Pi says, is the ventral area beneath their gills and their lateral fins. This causes fish to swim up towards the fishermen. Pi also learns that desperation has caused him to be willing to stick his fingers into fish eyes and gills, crush fish stomachs with his knees, bite fish tails with his teeth, and chop off fish heads. He used to shudder when he peeled a banana because it sounded like breaking an animal's neck. Pi says he now descended to a level of savagery he never imagined possible. Pi never stops improving his methods of fishing. He hides a hook in the seaweed-covered cargo net. Pi has a few rare days where he catches more fish than he and Richard Parker can eat, and the fish scales on Pi look like glitter, like a Hindu tilak, often a spot or a dash of red dye on the forehead, worn as a religious symbol. Pi also learns how to catch turtles. As the survival manual states, the turtles are easy to catch. Pi has to use the tarpaulin hooks on the side of the lifeboat and ropes, though, to lift 130-pound turtles out of the water. As weeks pass and Pi grows weaker, he stops catching the big, too-heavy green turtles and just catches the hawksbills. Chapter 67. Sea life finds a home on the underside of Pi's raft. Algae, shrimp, worms, small fish, and crabs. Although Pi tries everything except the worms, only the crabs were really edible. Pi says he ate them like candy. Pi is entertained by the upside-down town beneath his raft. Note: Martel uses many metaphors, upside-down town, and similes like candy to make Life of Pi come alive. Pi also ate gooseneck barnacles from the hull of the lifeboat. Chapter 68. Because of anxiety, Pi sleeps only an hour at a time. Richard Parker sleeps most of the time, usually under the tarp. At night or on cloudy days, sometimes he would come out. Sometimes the tiger turns his back, puts his head between his paws, and looks like he is counting and playing hide-and-seek. Chapter 69. Pi says that on many nights he thought he saw a light from his ship. He used all the rocket flares and then started using hand flares. The flares smelled like cumin, a spice. The smell made Pondicherry come into his mind. It was good to be reminded of home after being so disappointed when no rescue came. Now, though, cumin reminds Pi of the Pacific Ocean. Finally, Pi completely gave up hope of a rescue ship. Chapter 70. Pi says that butchering a turtle is hard work. The first turtle Pi butchers is a small hawksbill that Pi cannot handle on the raft, so he takes it to the lifeboat. Pi describes the butchery in great detail, including how he drinks a cup of the turtle's blood even while the turtle still lived. Note: Pi's attack on the turtle is like the hyena's attack on the zebra back in Chapter 45. Pi works hard to cut the shell off of the turtle's body. Pi cuts the head off of the turtle, hears Richard Parker stirring, and gives the still-moving remains of the turtle to the tiger. Pi decides he wants to be able to use the lifeboat whenever he wants. Pi says, "It was time to impose myself and carve out my territory." Pi lists what he learns about establishing territory. 1. You need strong waves. 2. Make armor out of blankets or available materials, have a place to escape to, and have your anchor all the way out. 3. Provoke or annoy the animal without getting in its territory. 4. Get the animal to move into your territory. 5. Retreat, blow your whistle, and move the anchor to make the boat get hit broadside by the waves. 6. Keep blowing the whistle and rocking the boat so the animal will understand that the sound of the whistle and the animal's nausea are connected. 7. Keep going until your animal is green about the gills, an idiom for sick. 8. Stop when the animal is obviously sick. Give the animal water and anti-nausea medicine. Retreat. 9. Repeat these steps until the animal clearly associates the sound of the whistle with nausea. Then only use the whistle if the animal enters your territory or misbehaves. Chapter 72. Pi describes the shield made from a turtle shell that he uses when training Richard Parker. He loses the first shield when the tiger knocks him into the water. Pi survives by swimming to his raft. When he is able to get another turtle, he makes another shield. Pi is determined to make the lifeboat safe for himself to use in bad weather. The tiger knocks Pi off the boat 4 times, but Pi finally learns to anticipate when Richard Parker will strike. Pi uses his whistle and rocks the boat to make Richard Parker sick. Pi says his 5th shield lasted all the way through Richard Parker's training. Chapter 73. Pi wishes he had a book with Krishna's words, the Bible, or some book that could engage his mind and spirit even with multiple readings. He gets tired of reading the survival manual, which he thinks he must have read thousands of times. Pi says he began writing a diary about a week after the Simsum sank. He wrote it in the smallest possible print so he would not run out of paper. He wrote about the weather, his feelings, and practical stuff. Chapter 74. Pi does Christian, Hindu, and Islamic rituals as best he can without having religious materials, but it is hard sometimes to have faith and give love. Pi remembers that before all of his clothing fell apart, he made a turban and called it God's hat, and called his pants God's attire. He tried to keep his faith strong, but sometimes he felt great despair. Then fish would appear, or there would be another distraction. Despair passed, and Pi kept his faith and love. Chapter 75. One day Pi guesses that it is his mother's birthday. He sings happy birthday to her. Chapter 76. In this chapter, Pi discusses animal poop, feces. He explains that zookeepers clean cages to prevent animals from eating their own poop and getting parasites and germs into their intestines. Pi also knows that if an animal hides its poop, it is showing its social inferiority, its deference to another creature. When Richard Parker tries to hide his feces, Pi uses his gaff to get it. Pi holds the tiger's feces in his hand and stares at the tiger, who looks away. Pi's dominance is established. Pi says that he, like the tiger, is only able to have a bowel movement about once a month. It is very painful. Chapter 77. Pi knows he needs to save his emergency rations. He eats only 2 biscuits every 8 hours. He becomes obsessed with food and thinks of fantasy meals. When he catches fish, he sucks on the fluid from their eyes. He loves turtle blood, flesh, and fat. He eats whatever he finds in the turtles' stomachs. This food is much better, Pi remembers, than his one attempt to eat Richard Parker's feces. The feces were hard and had no nutrients or water content. Pi never tried to eat them again. After the weather in ocean water destroys the blankets, Pi uses the turtle shells as shelters from the weather. Chapter 78. Pi describes his surroundings: many skies, many seas, many winds, many nights, and many moons. Their appearances, sounds, and moods constantly change. Pi says that the thing that does not change is that a castaway is always the center of a circle, and above him there are opposing circles made by the sun and moon. The sun makes you want to hide. The moon distresses you by silently reminding you of your solitude. Pi says that castaways are caught up in grim and exhausting opposites: light and dark, hot and cold, feast and famine, wet and dry. The surprising thing is that the benefits and detriments caused by these opposites occur simultaneously. The sun dries the fish into strips, preserving them, but cooking you. The rain gives water, but ruins the drying fish. Pi says the worst pair of opposites is boredom and terror. Sometimes your life is a pendulum swing. Sometimes boredom and terror exist at the same time. Only death consistently excites your emotions, whether contemplating it when life is safe or fleeing it when life is threatened. Life on a lifeboat is like the end of a chess game. There are only a few pieces, and success and failure are close. Everything can be going wrong, but then you can feel like the luckiest person on earth because you have just caught a fish.